Hello and welcome to The Big Fight. And I have to say that this is a slightly special edition because we are going to be discussing, if not debating, the ultimate mystery, the ultimate question that man has been asking ever since he first acquired consciousness. God, the meaning of the universe, where has all of this come from? Now this week, science says it has discovered a new particle that some call the God particle. And again, that set that old debate going. Science versus religion. Is there really a clash? Are we any closer to understanding the meaning of the universe? Are we any closer to understanding whether there was creation, and if so, who or what was the creator? And that's what we're going to be talking about in The Big Fight. And I have to say, I have a really fantastic panel. I can't think of too many better people to help us understand these mysteries. I'd like to start off by welcoming Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev, who's a spiritual guru, founder of the Isha Foundation. It's an honor to have you with us right here in the studio. Thank you so much for being with us. Dr. Push Bhargav, molecular biologist, has been studying this from the scientific side, and we'll be fascinated to hear your views. Dr. Dominic Emanuel, spokesperson of the Delhi Catholic Archdiocese, thank you so much for being with us as well. Professor Rajaraman is Emeritus Professor of Theoretical Physics at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Great to have you with us. Swami Atma Priyananda is the Vice Chancellor of the Ramakrishna Mission, Vivekananda University, who's done a lot of work on theoretical physics as well. So you'll perhaps be talking from both sides in this particular debate. It's great to have you with us. And Shiv Vishwanathan, one of our best-known sociologists, is going to be also telling us where does all of this fit into a societal parameter. Some say that man invented God or man created God for other reasons, and we'll be getting you to talk on that. Sadhguru, there's been so much interest this week that a God particle has been found. Now, I know the term is something which many find contentious, but again, it's made people wonder about the nature of existence itself. And science thinks that it has now come up with a standard model that explains existence.
The scientists are becoming market savvy and media savvy. So a name like this, God particle, suddenly has grabbed everybody's interest. Otherwise, for a lot of people in today's world, science means the next model of iPhone. That has been the idea of science. Once again, young people are interested to know what this is about. I see all the people around me being interested in particle physics and fundamental physics like never before in the last 3 days which is a very good thing, because science should be essentially seeking. Spiritual process is also seeking, essentially a human being seeking to know, because wanting to know is not something that is infused by education. Wanting to know is a very natural state of human intelligence. I mean, the name is not suitable for what has happened. It doesn't matter, but it's grabbed people's interest, and that's interesting and important for the world.
I guess Sadhguru's right. God particle is a bit more catchy than talking about leptons or quarks or even a boson, right? Even though the name in a sense originates from an Indian, but it's to that extent more catchy. He said that science is seeking, spiritualism is seeking. So to that extent, both are trying to find what is reality. Would you agree with that? And are we any closer to figuring out which of them is closer to the truth?
I don't believe that we can synonymize science and spiritualism. I think they are two completely distinct approaches and not
different approaches, but seeking the same answer?
That depends on what is the question that you are seeking to answer. There are many ways, even religion all through has sought answers, same questions that science has. And when science has found the answers, they have been almost invariably in contradiction to what religion has provided. But coming to this question of the God particle, I think it's a complete misnomer. You know that initially it was actually called goddamn particle. Yeah. But the editor removed the term.
And made it the God particle. The reason why some people still call it the God particle is because in a sense there's a view that what the Higgs boson actually does is it enables energy to create matter. It creates matter in a sense, so therefore it's playing the role of creation. I guess you would disagree with that strongly.
No, I wouldn't disagree, because creation has started somewhere. And even now the readers of the Bible do agree that the story given in the first chapter of the book of Genesis, that God created the universe one day by one day, and on the last day he created human beings, is not exactly how it is. But it is how those people perceived or understood the creation, that God created them that way. But now science is throwing more and more light on how creation came about.
You are saying that God would have created man, God has created the universe, but
not exactly in the same way as it is described in the Bible or in the first chapter of Genesis.
So even if there was a Big Bang or the Higgs boson is creating matter, that's the hand of God working through the Big Bang.
Yes, that we would still agree, because science, you see, is still struggling with this little particle, if I may say. And that still is about matter. It is not yet even crossed the border of spirituality, or let us say spirit or soul. Now, after man or science has been able to throw some light on what this particle and matter and mass, etc. is, then our next task would be to try and explain what the soul is, or what the spirit is, or what is the function of the mind, the intellect, where has that come from? And how does that function? Because right now they're struggling only with particle and with matter.
Let me just go to you, Professor Rajaraman.
It is true that everybody wants to be a rock star, and the physicists also. So the name God entirely came from that effort. It just doesn't belong here at all, even in a remote extension of what you mean by God. So that I want to dissociate myself from that name completely. Having said that, I would say that...
hates it. Professor Higgs also hates the name God particle. He didn't like the term Higgs boson either. But then
well, that's out, second is out of modesty, but the first is out of good taste.
All right, fine. Swami Atman Priyananda?
I completely agree with Professor Bhargav, because fortunately or unfortunately, I was trained as a physicist, as a particle physicist, before I became a monk. Many people have asked me, why did you become a monk after doing so much of physics? I said it is not in spite of it, it is because of it.
Because so you're finding the connection. So you're finding the connection, sir, between spirituality and physics?
Let me finish. So if you take physics very seriously, physics has taught me to look at the world very differently from what our five senses look at the world. And when you talk about spirituality vis-a-vis, not versus, vis-a-vis science, I would say to put both of them together either synonymously or coevally, or saying that one leads to the other, is vulgarizing both. Leave these two departments separately. And if science at some point leads to spirituality, we do not know, let it. But saying that this God particle and God created, and there's a misstatement scientifically, Higgs boson does not create matter. So what Higgs boson does
is facilitate the process.
Scientifically, is to give masses to certain particles which are massive. Human beings, scientists do not yet know how particles acquire masses. There's a mechanism which Higgs suggested by which particles which are massless can acquire mass. This is a tremendous achievement in that sense, and Higgs boson was not seen at that time, and therefore people didn't believe that this could happen. If this could happen, this creates a tremendous revolution. There are three important things. One is about symmetry. Symmetry has been a very crucial concept in life itself, not, in fact in science. The whole cardinal principle of physics is symmetry.
Right.
And symmetry comes from the idea of beauty, which is related to social sciences, humanities, arts, everywhere. And we believe nature is beauty, Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, we know that. And symmetry, according to physics, is related to conservation principles.
Okay.
So I'll come back to that.
Yeah, we will just come back to some of the details of this in just a couple of minutes. Shiva, I just want to get you in on this.
Yeah. I must confess I plugged in physics at school. You know, I think it was lovely that this was a misnomer. Because I think what we saw was the gossip of science, the gossip of ordinary people caught in a beautiful conversation. Thank God there was misunderstanding. Otherwise, what would scientists and spiritualists do? I think the important thing is, look at the drama of the event.
Yeah.
It was great drama.
Man has found God. That's it. I saw headlines saying man has found God. I was like, wow, that's nice.
Yeah, but
I thought it was a particle.
And I think the beauty of this was the variety of questions asked.
Okay.
Let's enjoy the event.
Okay.
Because otherwise we start acting like literary critics, putting a grammar on the event.
But Sadhguru, the fundamental question that I started with, actually that's a fundamental question that Humanity probably started with, 10, 20, 30,000 years ago when the first, people were staring up at the skies and trying to figure out where did we all come from. That's the question which, to come back to it, is what science is trying to answer, and in a sense, spirituality is also trying to answer. Are we any closer to understanding it?
First thing is, there is something people are referring to, I never utter the word, but referring to spiritualism. We are not talking about spiritualism. It's very obvious, as the scientists are saying, only 4% of the creation is physicality, okay? Rest is non-physical. All that is non-physical is what we refer to as spiritual. Here in this country, in this culture, we don't see spirit as one individual thing, a lamplight that floats away and floats in. Everything that's non-physical is considered spiritual. I am neither a physicist, nor I have bothered to read any of the popular books that are around or the textbook. Only the newspaper I have read just to see what's happening for the drama's sake. And nor am I a scholar in any spiritual sciences. I have not read the… I'm sorry, I have not read the Gita. I've gotten into a lot of trouble by saying that. I have not read the Upanishads or the Vedas or any scriptures for that matter, okay? The most serious scripture that I read is Asterix.
Okay.
Yeah. So the only thing that I know is I have paid enormous attention to how this one happens. I know this one from its origin to its ultimate. From that I speak. Though the word Vigyan is being used in a very loose way today, it essentially means Vishesh Gyan, that is, means an extraordinary knowledge which cannot be studied through 5 senses or through the simple instrument of your intellect, because the nature of the intellect is it wants to cut open everything. As you're breaking the protons and looking inside, you want to cut open everything and know it. This is the nature of the intellect. Intellect can only dissect and understand. Would I know Vikram if I dissect you? Would I know you?
As long as, if you could wait for that entire process for a few years, I would be much happier.
You're smart.
I hate to say.
So I'm
I'd love
saying…
to offer myself for either spiritualism or science, but maybe…
So I'm saying intellect is essentially like a scalpel which opens up things and shows us certain things, which is extremely useful for our existence here,
Okay.
for our survival process here. But now we are trying to understand the very basis of life. And if you're looking at the basis of creation, then your senses and your intellect are not substantial instruments to do that. There are other ways of doing it.
Science has, at the end of the day, only been able to understand and explain 4% of the matter or the mass that we know in the universe. So the more we are trying to learn from the scientific point of view, the less we know. That's, I think, the point that Sadhguru was talking about.
I believe that even in matters of spirituality, there is room for precision of thought. It need not be abandoned. So these descriptions that you give of how much of science we understand, the statement you made, I've heard before, that's true too in some sense. But if we don't understand 96% of the universe…
No, we are not saying 4% is small. 4% is enormous.
No, that's not the point. That's the 96% in some sense. That 96% doesn't contain 96% of the wisdom about science. It doesn't. So these numbers, I think, are misleading, although they are correct. Weinberg, Hawking, have tried to write about these matters. And in the process, they have goofed. These are people I admire greatly. But in their books, you'll find sentences here and there about creation, about God, which, if taken literally, is misleading. You have to go and talk. Why did you put that sentence in? I think both groups are seeking. Somebody asked, are they seeking the same thing? No, they're seeking something. But that they are seeking is a very common point. That is true. From the beginning, it has sort of been clear that they're seeking different things. And all the explorations of science have never really been meant to explain God or understand God. It's something which is considered outside the purview, not unimportant, greatly important, but outside the purview. The word is metaphysical rather than even spiritual is the word I would use. So I think these two pursuits should be left to go independently.
I have been reading, and I was reading this book, for instance, The Language of God by Francis Collins, who headed the Human Genome Project. And he describes in his book how he traveled himself from atheism to believing. And therefore, I would not say that these are two completely different things, and those who are scientists are not going to be involved in spirituality or would not find God. Many of them do actually, and in this book, he talks about a survey done twice in the United States, once in 1916 and then again in 1997, I think, where they put exactly the same questionnaire to scientists whether they actually believed in God. And according to them, 40% of scientists say that yes, they do believe in God and they have faith.
Is there a conflict between science and God? Can a scientist believe in God?
There's a tremendous conflict between science and the concept of God, which is crucial to the dogma of religion. There is no question about this. I think we must be clear as to what are the
Sir, if I could just ask for an amplification of that. Are you saying that if you're a true scientist, you cannot believe in God?
If you are a true scientist, then you would not find any need to believe in God. There would be
need to believe in
no
God.
need to believe in God.
But that is what this is saying. Survey is saying 40% of them do believe.
May I answer that survey? You see, there's scientists and scientists. When this survey was done, you took anybody who has a degree in science, you counted that. Now, in the late 1980s, several friends of ours, who are all fellows of the Royal Society of Britain, and we did a survey of all the fellows of the Royal Society of Britain, members of the US National Academy of Sciences, members of the French Academy of Sciences, members of the Soviet Academy of Sciences, and Nobel Prize winners since 1950. Between the half a dozen of us, we knew most of these people personally.
And
we came to the conclusion that over 98% of them were declared non-believers. The point is that whatever we don't know, the only way to know is through the method of science.
okay, I don't want to come back to the believing. I'm just coming back to the conflict between science and God. So I'm going to come to you.
The one important thing is I have never uttered the word God till now, if you have not noticed that. I'm not talking about God. First of all, you can consider yourself a seeker only if you have realized that you do not know. If you believe something, you cannot consider yourself a seeker. So, seeking comes out of realizing that you do not know. Now, somebody thinks their seeking is purer or better than somebody else's seeking. That is a very prejudiced way of looking at life. So, there is no such thing as my kind of seeking and your kind of seeking. Everybody may seek in their own way. As long as you're seeking, there is a possibility. And these possibilities can be multiplied in different ways. These possibilities can be approached in different ways. Right now, thinking this methodology that's been established by Western methodology of a certain type of logic is the only way to seek. It is the only way to seek if you're always trying to convert science into technology. Essentially what this means is, we are always looking at the universe as to how to make use of everything. I think it's a very crass way of existence.
Sanjay, I just want to ask you one question. You know, at the end of the day, a lot of the work that you yourself have done, and there are a lot of people who have been arguing this, especially in the recent days after this, is that actually there's not necessarily a clash, that some philosophical beliefs, for example, there are a lot of people who say that in the Upanishads, in Vedanta, there are theories that are not completely dissimilar to what has actually been discovered by science so far, the existence of the Atma and the existence of Brahman, where does matter come from, where does matter go away from. Would you agree with that, that there's not necessarily a conflict?
I would quote from Swami Vivekananda, who was a confirmed non-believer turned believer in some sense. He asks a simple question: should a religion subject itself to be scrutinized by the same kind of criteria by which secular sciences are subject to scrutiny? Yes or no? He says a big yes, and because of that, if religion goes away, let it go, and you should have gone long ago. If religion shies away from being tested by the same kind of criteria by which secular sciences are being tested, that kind of religion does not deserve to exist. That is his. So the idea is, we all, the scientists as well as the spiritualists, are seeking, according to Swami Vivekananda, unity. We all of us are seeking unity. We are asking the question, is it possible to have one single theory because of economy of nature, because of the beauty of nature? This was referred in the Upanishads long ago. You call it a spirituality, you call it science, by any name you call it. Kaspinna bhagavo vigyate sarvamidam vigyatam bhavati in the Mundaka Upanishad. What is that by knowing which everything can be known? He does not call it either the spirit or Brahman or the Atman or God, no name. Is it possible to know that one entity by knowing which everything can be known? And interestingly, the answer given is, all that you can know comes under the realm of aparavidya or science. That you can know really and truly but through the intellect is only at the lower realm.
Okay. Then there is a contradiction to what Swami Vivekananda is saying, that if you're saying that things can be known only through secular sciences, and if religion cannot be...
I never said scrutinized.
No, yeah, scrutinized. So then you are saying that religion and the spirituality can be also examined on the same way as secular sciences, but that is what Sadhguru was saying, and I would hold...
You should be examined.
No, I would hold that not all knowledge is acquired by senses.
No, I'm not saying that. Explanation of something should come from within and not from without.
So I'm just trying to again come back to the question. You were saying, you were indicating that you think that the Upanishads and some of these scriptures and doctrines actually have the underpinnings of modern science.
No. Underpinning in the sense they are parallels, the language seems to be similar, but the approach could be different. We don't know. Okay. Semantics are very misleading.
At the end of the day, is there a conflict? Are they both seeking the same thing?
There are two dangers here. One is trying to force an unnecessary unity by saying, you know, I see similarities, Fritjof Capra style. The other great danger is when scientists want to be historians of science, like Professor Bhargav. He's a disaster. Christianity had a particular kind of relation on evolution. But that doesn't mean other cosmologies debated the same way. Okay. The important thing is not unity. It is how difference can be complementary.
No, I think the interesting thing
conversation
is unity does not mean sameness at all.
Yes,
he is
precisely.
He is confusing between unity and uniformity.
No,
I'm not talking about uniformity.
I'm not saying I'm confusing. I'm saying that to a certain extent, when you people talk about unity, you've got to be careful.
We are careful.
There are two aspects to this. Number one, can the entire nature of existence as we know it be explained either by religion or by science? That's question number one. And a related question, are there some aspects of existence which can be explained by science and other aspects that are mystery which can then only be explained by religion? So, Sadhguru, which of the two is it? Is there one reality which either of them should be able to explain, or are there different aspects of it which each should look at?
It is improper to call only a certain way of thought and a certain way of experimentation as science. There are yogic sciences. Maybe the Western scientists think it is not science, but we have applied ourselves much more than you have applied in your life towards the science. Human capabilities are different and beyond the possibilities of intellect. Intellect comes up first because it is a tool for survival. The moment you're born, your senses and your intellect are on because these are tools for survival. But if you strive, there are other dimensions of perception within a human being. Those things have never been explored, and you keep on saying only that is science. That is not fair. We have been exploring these sciences for thousands of years. Just in the last 150 years, only because you have provided facilities for people, okay? Only because technologies have come, gadgets have come, that has become science. It's popular science. The profound science that you're talking about, unfortunately, is playing to popularism. There are other ways of studying existence. First of all, the basis of existence for me, is myself. Here for you is yourself. Because your perspective of the existence is only the way it projects in your mind. There is no other way to see it, the way your senses show it to you. Putting the whole existence to the test of human logic is a very simplistic science.
Okay. Can we explain existence as we know it entirely from the prism of science as we know it?
As human logic.
Whether it's biological science, physical science, or chemical science?
The only way that we can arrive at an answer that will stand the test of time is by using the scientific method. And in the past, when such reliable answers have been obtained, people have unwittingly used the scientific method without knowing that they're doing it. The method was actually codified only about the 13th century. You know, I have read all the scriptures. We use the term spirituality. Now, what do we mean by this term? We use the term soul. Now, biologically, there's no question soul doesn't exist. There's not a shred of evidence of the existence of soul as we commonly perceive it.
But the greatest of respect said there was no existence, there was no proof or evidence of the existence of the Higgs boson until earlier this week. And
but Higgs boson was we knew that if the the standard model of particle physics had to be correct, We knew that Higgs boson must exist. Science allows you to...
But because science has not been able to establish the existence of the soul as of this moment, doesn't mean that it does not happen. Because the science, once upon a time, thought that once upon a time, science said that the world, the whole universe centers around the Earth. That was science at that time. There was a time when science said that the atom is indivisible. There was a time when science felt, so science changes. So I'm just saying the fact that science hasn't established the soul right now doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Science cannot explain some of the most fundamental. Science cannot define matter. What is a particle? Physics cannot define. And it is happy that it cannot define. Well, it cannot define space. It cannot define time. So everything need not be defined, actually.
So I can only hope that Swamiji knows his spirituality better than he knows his science. And I also want to say that spiritual discussions are not the sole ownership of spiritual leaders. It's part, all of us have a right to talk about it, so I want to say a few things. First, it is wrong to say that the Vedas contain all this information. It's completely wrong. It is true, it contains very high wisdom, and it's an insult to the Vedas to try to read modern science into it. It deals with matters which are far more important. Now, when 3 quarks were found someday, 40 years ago, the number 3 was discovered in the Vedas in 20 places. People said, look, it said 3, it said 3. Then 7 particles were discovered, it said 7. That is not saying Vedas knew this. The Vedas knew something much deeper. The difference between science and somebody saying something like, all began out of nothing, a statement like that, is the number of predictions, precise predictions that you can make. When science says there was a Big Bang, there are 10,000 things you can measure and check it is true. When say it all started out of nothing, there is nothing you can check afterwards.
Sadhguru is talking about belief as opposed to knowing something. At the end of the day, is religion what you have to believe?
No, one second. One second. What is the problem with my 2 good friend scientists here is that they have only one methodology of knowing. And they're saying that unless a thing can be experimented with and reach a result and can be retested, that is real knowledge.
No, that is real science. That is real science.
But both Sadhguru has said, and I maintain that is not the only way. In philosophy, there is a school which is called logical positivists. Logical positivists always believe that the only knowledge that can be acquired is through perceptions and through senses. But it is believed now, all other philosophers like Habermas, Gadamer, Paul Ricoeur, and so many other sociologists as well, who would say, no, there are other ways of knowing. Though Sadhguruji is talking about spiritual ways of knowing, but through pure intellectual process, through philosophical process, there is a way of knowing things that cannot be known through scientific experiments. So basic problem here is that whether we have only scientific way of knowing or whether there are other ways of knowing. Art, for example, art, music, poetry, love, your sensitivity. Can this be proved by science? Can they be measured by science?
Unfortunately, very much. They can be measured.
A lot of work is being done today by some of the most brilliant scientists. How does the brain respond to art, to poetry, to music? Music has been broken down into its elements. There are different parts of the brain that respond to different aspects of music. And
somehow I'm rather disappointed to hear that. It somehow loses the mystery. To say that this is you're going to love somebody if A, B, C, D, E happens.
Allow me to
You're going to like this art if the following rhythms are
allow me to make two or three other statements.
Yeah, something went wrong.
Please allow me to make just two brief statements. One is that there's nothing wrong if it turns out, as I believe will turn out, that we are genetically programmed to respond to beauty. And there's a tremendous amount of evidence that we have today. Point number 1. Point number 2, that love at first sight. Don't we use that term? Love at first sight. What does that imply?
Chemical reaction.
We may even have love at first smell. You know, in insects we have
a lot of it is chemical reaction.
I happen to be very devoted to music. I do not want to know the theory of the scales. I do not want to even read music scholars. They ruin the whole thing. I just like to listen.
Yeah,
Similarly,
I
am a scientist. I believe in God. I will not examine my God through my science. I think these are entirely different things. It's foolish to try to do both. We don't have the ability.
You're a scientist who believes in God, but he says that a real scientist shouldn't be believing in God.
This is his view. I respect Pushpa. We've known each other for a long time. That's his view. He's an extreme rationalist. I respect that. I'm not. Most people are like me. They probably do not know the science part, but they are like me. There are rational aspects of our lives, irrational. You have to live with both. If you don't have the wisdom to do that, then you get trapped in these discussions.
Especially in studios like this. Okay, the point I've been trying to get you to talk about is a lot of the science out here there in the scriptures, or they're not?
So the difficulty is, what kind of, take a statement out of context and say this is parallel to that. I think that's a very kind of a profane game, which we should not play.
Okay.
So, as he said, they contain a lot of wisdom, and try to understand them as they are. They're different paradigms. Arthur Eddington was a very great astrophysicist, is a contemporary of Einstein, has a book called The Nature of the Physical World. That was written in the 30s. The last chapter, Mysticism and Science, that is the title of the chapter. There he says that we have two kinds of knowledge. One is symbolic knowledge, which is acquired through science and through measurement and through experimentation. Other is intimate knowledge, which we just feel it in our bones. We just know what it is. He gives the example of humor. Somebody says, I give a piece of joke. I'm a scientist, and I say I should now define what is a joke, what are the criteria by which a good joke can be called a joke. 1, 2, 3. Just like you subject a chemical salt in a laboratory to tests. Now, after having tested this joke scientifically, analytically, I come to the conclusion, yes, it is a joke. Now laugh.
Shiv, if I can just ask you, before I go to a break, I want to really come back and try and understand whether we're any closer to understanding the meaning of existence, and that's, of course, the ultimate question to strive towards. In a sense, when both religion started and science started, as I said, it was trying to answer it. Even some of the early religions came up because you were seeing thunder, you were seeing rain, and you said, we don't know how this happened, so it was Zeus, it's Zeus doing it. Zeus is doing it, or it's Indra doing it, or so-and-so doing it, and science tried to answer the same question. Over the generations, have we tried to bridge the gap, or are they both locked in dogma?
The beauty of science and the beauty of your quest need not be quarrelsome in the way it was articulated. There are differences. There is a fantastic sense of playfulness to both.
No.
But
What I'm saying is, why only such a narrow pursuit is considered science?
No, that's
why isn't science much larger?
Sadhguru, that's precisely what I'm saying. They're not saying that. I think it's not narrow. A science senses its sense of limits and sees that as a possibility of a methodological strength. I think that's very different from saying a science is narrow.
Okay. I'll give you a chance to respond to that, Sadhguru, then I'm going to take a break.
See, the essence of what I'm saying is, quest is quest. Quest comes from essentially a human being realizing that he does not know. And he does not know only because he has refused to assume things. People have assumed and concretized that into a belief system they will never seek because they already know without knowing. The reason why modern science has become the way it has become is because there's been so much misuse of the ancient ways of doing things. Horrible misuse has happened. At that time, science came with a method which could be least misused. But you cannot say science has not been misused either.
But Sadhguru, couldn't that same argument also be used for religion? Because in a lot of religions, there's a dogma. This is exactly what happened. This is what God is. This is what the nature of religion is.
That is not seeking.
So you think that's also as wrong as the other would be? Because in a sense, there's a dogma out there.
It's not seeking. Somebody wants to assume something. What they assume and believe in simply is a cultural influence. Depending upon which culture you're born in, accordingly you believe something. Different people believe different things. Belief will give you solace. Belief will not give you a solution.
Would you be agreeing with what he's saying, or at the end of the day, in religion, to your mind, is there a certain amount of belief that is required?
Certainly. Yeah. There is a certain fundamental things that you need to believe in. And certain things are unchangeable.
So you have to believe some of that.
I quite agree that religion is also interpreted. There are interpretations, and there is a further study to understand what is written in the scriptures, because scriptures have been written many thousand years ago, and in what context they were written, in what language they were written. So that can be studied.
Okay.
So but as a self-appointed spokesman of God for a minute, I want to distinguish between God and religion. Enormous confusion here.
Yeah.
My God doesn't...
Actually, a lot of evil has been done in the name
That's
of God.
right. And
a
my
lot
God...
of evil, probably more evil has been done in the name of God than has been done in the name of devil.
Precisely.
No, but
and
we have to do one
my
thing.
God requires faith. Mine does. I mean, I'm talking about mine.
Vikram,
I
you have to
need
do
faith.
one thing then.
I
Devil
cannot
gave
explain
You'll
did
have to
one good thing
differentiate
to you, it
between
gave you the
modern
apple.
Western science and the other sciences.
Okay.
I think you'll have to need both
Okay,
distinctions.
I'm going to have to take a break right now. When I come back, I'm going to be asking all of you about the meaning of existence. Are we any closer to understanding it than we were 50,000 years ago? Let's try and turn our attention to that when we come back after this break. Welcome back to The Big Fight. Before I come back to all our experts on this panel to try and really understand the meaning of existence, let me quickly get the audience in and see where they stand on all of this. Who has a question or a comment to make? Gentleman here.
Do you not believe in the fact that science starts on the basis of a presumption and hypothesis, on the basis of which the scientists draw conclusion, take up the evidences, and then they prove their own hypothesis? Isn't it that you have already started with the narrow vision and you accordingly prove your own vision? And you are saying that that's the perfect theory.
Okay, Sadhguru wants to bat for the scientists.
For a moment. The important thing about science is it does start with an assumption, but it battles its own assumptions and tries to disprove its own assumptions. The thing with the religion, it also starts with assumptions, but does not allow any kind of question about the assumption. That is the big difference.
Science does not start with an assumption.
Yeah, right.
Science starts with a question. The method of science has 4 steps. First is question. And framing the question is crucial because a well-framed question already takes you half the way to the answer. The second step is hypothesis. You make many hypotheses, not one, as many as you can. Third is experiment. You check these hypotheses. And if the experiment does not confirm the hypothesis, you change your hypothesis.
Okay.
And only when you cannot design an experiment which will disprove the hypothesis, that the hypothesis becomes an answer.
Okay.
The question was asked, isn't this very narrow? I think it's an important thing that you asked. Yes, science makes certain assumptions of whichever way, tests them and so forth. That is narrow only because it's not everything. Science never ever thought that it's going to explore and answer all the questions that arise inside you.
At one time.
At one time, or even, according to me, never. Therefore, it is limited, but it's huge. As you can see, the whole world has changed. Okay. But it's still very, very limited compared to what are the things you want to know.
There's a famous statement, the corridor of science is littered with the skeletons of discarded theories. A scientist, the moment he is proved wrong by experiment, he is gladly willing to throw away his pet theory.
That is the beauty of science.
Einstein said, I made a cosmic...
But Sadhguru said that religion doesn't always do that.
Religion should do it, otherwise religion has to go.
Okay, that's interesting. Gentlemen here.
So it's not that always science is, it's almost like a bad word to say God in science. Why should it have to be that a scientist should not believe in God?
All right, fine. I'm going to now come to...
it's not that scientists should not believe in God.
just
A
said I
scientist
did,
should not believe in anything.
Okay.
Not just in God. He should not believe in anything, then he cannot be a scientist. Nor can he be a spiritual seeker.
I think that's a
Nor can he be
that's a very sweeping statement.
Let me finish. Nor can he be a spiritual seeker if he believes in something. Because seeking is juxtaposed with belief. Seeking means you have realized I do not know. Only those people who have not realized the immensity of I do not know, which is the doorway to all knowing, only they will believe.
But that does not mean that I start with nothing. I certainly know something and I know that there is more to know. So you can say, yes, I have to seek, but it doesn't mean that I don't know anything.
What Vedanta says is, you can disbelieve everything, but you can't say, I don't exist. You have to believe in yourself.
Of so many Christian clerics, Jesuits, who have been scientists from 13th century onwards, there have been Jesuits who have been inventing and inventing new things, and these were all Catholic priests.
All right,
for God's sake.
Fair enough. Now I'm going to come to all of you and ask you whether, starting with your final comments, what at the end of the day are we any closer to understanding the meaning of existence?
Thank God we are not. Because that's the nature of seeking.
Yes.
But I think what really is, look at the playfulness of the language here. Part of it was caught in definitions. But to me the interesting thing is, unity is a mystery. But the search for it allows for tremendous varieties of difference.
Fair enough. Final thoughts, sir.
I will end with one story by Sri Ramakrishna, who made things so simple, because unfortunately we have been educated, we have read so much. Ramakrishna said, an ant went to a sugar hill. It ate a grain, its stomach was filled, the little fellow. Then he took one grain in his mouth and was walking back, and looking at the hill, he said, next time on, I'll take the entire hill to my small hole. He said the mystery of nature, the mystery of God or whatever, the mystery of creation, the mystery of existence is so big and so vast, man with his little intelligence thinks that he can explore and fathom it. All that we are doing is creating models and theories.
Okay.
We do not, that may be a good paradigm. So each model, each theory is perhaps as good as any other theory.
All right.
I've spent a great deal of my time trying to understand the meaning of life. I'm no closer to it today than 75 years ago. And furthermore, I've looked for spiritual leaders to tell me the meaning of life, never got it from them. I think some people live without knowing the meaning of life. They are perhaps the wisest.
Okay, don't try and find the meaning of
I
life.
would not say that I know completely, entirely the meaning of my existence here. But that also, I do not deny that I do not know either. I mean, I do not know it completely. I will know more and more as I meditate or as I learn or as I read. But for the time being, I know that I have a purpose for my existence, that I should be available to people who need me. And there are a lot of people in this world who need us.
I'm afraid there is no purpose.
There's no purpose to our, or meaning to existence.
There is no purpose, no meaning to existence. We create our purpose, we create our meaning, but there is no design, no purpose.
It's an accident that we are here, we will live out our lives, it's a process of...
It is an absolute accident that we are here. If life is found elsewhere, it wouldn't be like us. It will be carbon-based, hydrogen-based, water-based, but not like us. So there is no purpose, no design. In fact, there is a wonderful book by Jacques Monod, a very close friend of mine who won a Nobel Prize, called La Hasard, la Nécessité in French and A Chance and Necessity in English. Wonderful book, written in the late 1960s. And he says that there are only two things that are important. One is chance, because it is chance that has led to evolution, a chance that has led to the formation of the first cell on which Darwinian evolution operated, and the necessity to perpetuate that until the time another chance event has occurred. And therefore, once there is chance that dominates, the question of purpose doesn't arise at all.
The chance could be called God.
I have no problem. No. I have no problem.
So no chance according to you, and no evolution, it was God who did it.
That's a wrong spelling.
Somebody has started the wheel rolling. Somebody has to begin a wheel. There can be a wheel, it can be standing and
Ask where
stationary.
did that wheel come from?
What this yogic lore sees is, from our own experience, one thing that I went to two aspects and we skipped this. One is the gross creation, which is the physical. Next is the subtler thing, which is known as Vijnanamaya Kosha, because it's a special kind of knowledge that cannot be derived through intellect. And the third one is called Shunya, which is total emptiness. And the next one is referred to as Shiva. When I say Shiva, don't imagine the calendar figure you've always seen. When we say Shiva, what it means, that which is not. So they say Shiva is a cosmic man lying down across the cosmos, and he is nothing. He is not physical matter, he is nothing, but he is opaque. And then Shakti came and she danced around, a certain level of energy danced around. When she danced around, today modern science is saying that there are virtual protons and neutrons in vacuum spaces, and whenever electromagnetic forces are applied, they organize themselves into elliptical order. So when Shakti danced around, he got irritated and he woke up. And anybody in deep slumber, if they're woken up, they will get angry. So he got angry and he roared. So we said he is a Rudra. Rudra means a roarer. I was in conversation with Paul Steinhardt, who wrote that endless universe thing. Today scientists are believing that universe is endless, as we've been saying. So I asked him, is it just one bang? He was simulating these bangs on the computer and he was showing in Davos. And I met him there and we had a long discussion. I asked him, are you sure it's only one bang? He said, there's no guarantee, there could have been many. So if there are many bangs, if bangs happen together, could you call it a roar? You take an automobile engine, it is only going bang bang, but if you throttle up, it's a roar. So he roared. When he roared, the yoga says, he spat out galaxies. And he spat out galaxies which are not reality, they say. They are non-material galaxies. Then Shakti touched Shiva. When she touched Shiva, she gathered inertia. Till then she was ecstatic and uncontrollable, but she touched him and she gathered inertia. Can you gather inertia if you did not have mass? So she did not have mass till then, she touched him and she gathered mass and she gathered inertia, so she became more stable, which is what the creation is today. This is the yogic thing which has been around for 15,000 years.
Vedas.
Does that match with your scientific view of how creation happened?
There's one point of
That's
view.
one particular theory, highly speculative end of physics.
Shall I end with one shloka from the Veda? Iyam visrishtir yata ababhuva yadiva dadhe yadivana yo asya adyaksha parame vyoman so anga veda yadi va na veda. It is 6,000 years old from the Rig Veda. Whence all creation had its origin, he, whether he fashioned it or whether he did not, he who surveys it all from the highest heaven, he knows, or maybe even he does not know.
One thing that he said is there is no purpose. Yes, always we have said it's just a play, it's a leela. It is not a purposeful act, it's just a play. Why is it an accident? Why is it not a play?
All right, well, you know, I wasn't actually really optimistic about being able to understand the meaning of life in the course of a big fight, but I think we've had a really interesting discussion on all aspects of the meaning of life, so thank you all so much for joining us. We'll be back again next week and probably doing something completely different on the big fight. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week. Thank you so much.